Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine. I am super excited about my guest today. Just can't wait to see all the things that they're going to share with me and you today. So my guest today is Kirsten Karshmer. She is a health tech pioneer and women's health expert, and is the founder and CEO of Conceivable Technologies. And she has helped over 10,000 infertile women. And I just want to just have her just take it away because she has so many accolades, so many great things, over 300,000 devoted TikTok followers, all the things. So I just want to give it over to you and just say thank you, one, for being a guest here today. And I can't wait to hear your story.
Thank you so much. Well, I came to where I am today by a very roundabout way. I was a linguistics professor, and then I got diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 20. I couldn't walk without a cane, and the medicines that they were using at that time for MS were very new. And I just was scared, to just start taking some medication that was, so new. And so I just kind of did nothing, which a lot of people do with all kinds of different health concerns. And then a friend of mine was in acupuncture college at the time. She's like, you should really go see one of my teachers. He's really good. He's really famous. And I was like, acupuncture, that's like going to a psychic. I'm not doing that. That's not going to do anything. And she said, oh, you're so pigheaded. She goes, you won't even try one time? Just even if it could help 10%, is it worth just exploring? She's like, I'll even pay for it. Because when you are sick, a lot of people want to tell you to go see their person,
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going to see this person, and he, we had a long conversation. I won't tell your listeners the whole story, but essentially at the end of the conversation, he says, look, here's the deal. When you were born, your constitution, your body was very strong up here, really, really high. And your disease was very weak and nascent. But I was a competitive athlete when I was growing up. And so I trained a lot. And he said, so all while you were growing up, you trained and trained and trained. I trained until I threw up most days. I don't tolerate temperatures very well because of MS. And, I threw up almost every day when I was training. And, my father would just be like, good job. You're such a, bad A. And that made me just want to do more, And he said, so what happened over that time is your constitution, how robust your body is kept getting weaker and weaker, even though on the outside you looked so much healthier. I looked like Instagram star, like so fit. But on the inside, my organs were exhausted, my adrenals were exhausted, my energy was exhausted, my was exhausted. I didn't have a period, of course. And he's like, so what happened by the time you were 18 is your disease, I mean, your constitution was very weak and your disease had gotten quite strong. And around 19, it kind of broke through and I started having weakness. I couldn't hold things anymore and stuff like that. And he said, our job is to figure out all the underlying issues that are making the disease possible. And when we fix the foundation, there's a good chance you'll go under remission. And I was like, wow, I like that story. I mean, I didn't believe it, but it was more compelling than any other story I'd heard. And then that really did happen. And, from probably like in the first 3 months, I started having less. When you have MS, you have episodes. You like get bad, then you get a little better. Well, but I was having back-to-back episodes, and there were times when I was having space between episodes very soon, like 3 to 6 months in which I wasn't having episodes. Then I'd still have an episode, but it wouldn't be quite as bad. It wouldn't last quite as long. So I knew something was happening. And by about 18 months or 2 years, I wasn't using a cane anymore. In 3 years, I was surfing. And then until I went through menopause, like I still have MS. I have to pay close attention to the signals that my body is giving me. But if I do, I stay in pretty healthy state. And so that really motivated me to study Chinese medicine. And what I learned in acupuncture college was that a woman's menstrual cycle is so valuable. I know we think it's a curse, right? Like,
We
oh,
do.
it's the worst thing that happens. Well, because we don't understand it. And we don't understand that it's actually, I mean, it's not ever fun to have a period. Like nobody's celebrating when they're bleeding. But the information that our body is telling us every single day of our period can help us to diagnose almost any condition. Now, if you have some rare autoimmune disease, we're not going to be able to say, like, from your period, here's the rare disease that you have, but you can make sense of like why this person has these symptoms. And so I got really obsessed with women's health and infertility, and then ended up opening the first like women's health clinic at my college that I went to with my professor, and then ended up opening a bunch of acupuncture clinics specifically dedicated to fertility. We treated 10,000 women, and then, like I was telling you earlier, I read a study in 2015 or 16 that said less than 3% of couples could afford fertility treatments. And I cried, I was like, I'm really embarrassed because yes, what we were doing in the clinic was very high touch. We had an IVF center in my clinic, but the reality is like, if it's only helping 3%, then we have to do something different. Like, first of all, women's health women and men's health at the time of conception is the strongest predictor of the health of their offspring. It's really important work that we prepare for pregnancy, both husband and wife, so that we give our children the best chance. We can't dot every I and cross every T, but we can up the game to give them a little bit better head start, especially when people have metabolic disorders like PCOS and insulin resistance and things like that. And that is, I'll stop there and then we can have a conversation.
So let's go back to the beginning. How old were you when you were diagnosed with MS?
I was 19.
19. And how did that all of a sudden come about? Like it was just, it's really
So
hard to get diagnosed. That's what I've heard.
it is. And it took a lot. I mean, I actually probably well, I don't know. I'm not too good with the past, to be honest. I don't know exactly what year it was, but 18, 19, 20-ish. But what happened was I was a competitive tennis player and I was out playing tennis and I threw the ball up and tried to serve and the racket flew out of my hand. And I live in Texas where it's really hot and that happens sometimes because your hand just gets too sweaty. And I was like, it didn't feel like sweaty because I had just started, but I thought, oh, whatever. Go back, bounce the ball, throw the ball, serve, racket falls out. And I was like, ah. I just feel like I can't hold on to it. And then like two more serves, and then I just left. Like I knew something was so wrong. And I put my tennis racket, and I played 8 hours of tennis every single day for 10 years, I put my racket in the trunk and I didn't play tennis for about 2 months. It really scared me, even though I didn't acknowledge it. I just was like, as a kid. And then it just, then my foot started getting weak and then my foot started dropping. And then I started getting a little droop in my face a little bit. But I was always really tired. I like to tell my kids that, I was the person at slumber parties that always fell asleep at like 9:30, and that the people did things like they put shampoo in my hair or put shaving cream in my hand and touch my nose. Maybe I was I took the brunt of all of that. And after I got diagnosed, I was like, oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense now. That's why I was so tired. Plus, I was training a lot too.
Yeah, that's a lot of training, and I just think that's interesting. But from all the things that you go, there's a couple of things that you said that was like really interesting. You said that our bodies should be at optimal when we can conceive, both the male and the female. What is like? So I know, like for me, I was my first child I had when I was 19. I don't know if I was optimal health or not. And then my second, I miscarried in between. But when I
Mm,
miscarried, I actually had a lot of health issues, and maybe that's why my body rejected, the baby. But at that time I was diagnosed with, I kept dropping things like what you were doing, and I was
oh,
diagnosed with arthritis. I thought it was carpal
interesting.
tunnel, but they said it was arthritis, based on the needle testing and stuff like that. But
Oh, you had the EMG. That's the worst.
yeah, yeah. So, but then I had my second daughter, or my daughter, then we were done with kids. But I think that's really interesting. So with all the things that you've done, I mean, helping over 10,000 people, how does somebody, like, what is it that you do that can help people with the fertility now, or help them go through that?
So I think there's just so much misinformation, and especially when people are not getting pregnant, they get a little bit desperate. That's really normal because you do have a natural, like biologic urge to reproduce. Most of us, not all people, but most women do, and lots of men. But not men's is not nearly as strong as women's. And so then when they can't, they get a little bit, like, so then they start looking to social media, right? Because their doctors are saying things like, well, let's use Clomid, let's use letrozole. And people are like, well, I'm not ready to do that yet. I just like, we haven't even done any diagnosing or anything, or let's go right to IVF. And what I found, both from Chinese medicine and just my clinical experience is that, there are certain things that have to work to get and stay pregnant. So in Chinese medicine, we have categories for them. I'm not going to go into that because that's just a long explanation that won't be useful. But in general, here's what has to work. First, you have to be able to make, conserve, and restore energy. And we assess that with the first question that we ask is like, what's your energy like on a 1 to 10 without caffeine or exercise for 2 whole days? And we want it to be high, like 8 out of 10. And the reason for that is that the cells inside the embryo, right, in the egg, um, they have 10 times more mitochondria. The mitochondria are the energy makers. They're like the batteries for the cell. They have 10 times more mitochondria than any other cell in the body. And so for me, when I learned this, I was like, what's the function of so much more energy makers compared to any other cell in the body? It was like, well, really, an embryo is a little bit like a cancer. It needs a lot of resources, right? It needs nutrients, it needs energy, it needs blood, it needs a place to land. And when people are tired, first of all, that's a reflection of many other problems. Could be a reflection of sleep, could be a reflection of stress, could be a reflection of diet, could be a reflection of digestion, right? And so what we're doing at my company is we're looking at like how do we find all of these underlying issues and map them? How are they related to each other? So back to what I was saying, you have to be able to make, conserve. That means you're not too stressed or anxious during the day because that uses a lot of energy. And then you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up rested for 8 or more hours. That usually tells me that you can make, conserve, and restore energy. If that works, that's the hardest thing because if that doesn't work, we can't make blood very well to make a lining to support implantation. We can't make hormones, right? If we don't have the foundational resources, making them and holding them, the rest of the stuff will falter. So we want to have plenty of energy. We want to have a good amount of good menstrual blood too. So about 4 days of bleeding, not more or less. Soaking a tampon pad, filling a cup about every 4 hours, not more or less. No cramping. This is one that everybody argues with it. No clotting and no spotting. And the reason for that is that every doctor I have talked to, I don't know, hundreds, I'd like to say thousands, but maybe I can exaggerate, at least 100 doctors about this. Every Western physician will say clotting has nothing to do with implantation. I was like, it's not possible that it can't. If your menstrual blood is your lining, and there's a whole bunch of clots in your menstrual blood and in your lining, and you fertilize a perfect embryo, or you pay $22,000 for IVF, and that fertilized embryo lands where the blood is clot, that's dead blood. And what the embryo does is it sends out these little octopus fingers called trophoblastic cells, and they basically dig into your lining to try to find a blood supply. But sadly, in a clot, that doesn't work. It's just dead end miscarriage, right? Because if the embryo doesn't get a blood supply, you get it looks like a chemical pregnancy. Next thing you want to look at is temperatures, not for predicting ovulation, but actually your temperatures after ovulation tell us so much about your progesterone levels. Now, it's not a perfect science. Everything that we do, we borrow from Chinese medicine, right? So it's based on 3,000 years ago. We didn't have any technology, but we did have observational data. And what I saw in my clinic over 20 years was that if people's temperatures, after waking temperatures, like basal temperatures, don't get above 98 after ovulation, they will often have low progesterone and they will struggle to stay pregnant. And if we fix that, they don't struggle to stay pregnant because, again, the action of raising the temperatures high enough, it takes energy. So then we go back, if the temperatures are low, we go back and say, what's your energy? Right? It has to figure out, but why are the temperatures low? In order to, people say, well, how do you fix low temperature? Like, I don't know, because I don't know why your temperatures are low. But if I know why specifically your temperatures are low, it's actually very straightforward. And so those are the starting places. To answer your question more succinctly, what do you do if you're just trying and you want to get pregnant? You have to figure out what those underlying issues are. Forget about like, you know, fertility monitors, fertility trackers, looking at PGD, estrogen. I think that those are really injurious to women and dangerous because what happens is they get a lot of data and then that data freaks you out and you're like, oh, it says my progesterone is like 2.7, but I don't even know what that means and I don't know what it should be on cycle day 4 because there's no data on that. And then they usually take a screenshot of it and send it to me. I'm like, what does this mean? What do I do? And I was like, don't worry about it. Like it's not data that's materially going to make a difference for you. So we want to focus on the things that actually are real reflections of your likelihood of getting pregnant and then systematically work on them and watch them improve. And then if they're not improving, try other things to improve them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And I think that, like you said, when they start to have all of these inputs, now one thing I never suffered from infertility. I just between that one child that I miscarried, and then but other than that, then I got my tubes tied. But one of the things I think is interesting is like what you said was that like when you're like having to test the basal, all these things that you're trying to do. Because I have a lot of friends who've suffered from infertility.
Yeah.
Then they go and they see it's too much and it becomes overwhelming. And if they're overwhelmed, then they're going to get tired. And then that tiredness is just going to add to the part of the problem with being able to conceive.
Yes.
And
Well, and it's stress, and I think that like there is no data that show that stress causes infertility. So I want to be perfectly clear about that. But so people are like, well, I don't really need to work on the stress part. But what we do know is that stress, here's what happens physically. When you get stressed, you start producing adrenaline. Adrenaline is designed to allow you to pick up a tire, like a car off your baby or fight off a bear. It is a tremendous amount of energy. It's supposed to be used for emergencies, but if when we get depleted, our adrenal glands, like the turning off and turning on of adrenaline, it gets kind of wonky. And so a little thing happens, we go to the doctor, we have a bad doctor's appointment, and we start flooding our system with worry. We're worrying, adrenaline, and that adrenaline really hurts our fertility because it's inflammatory. It's designed to be inflammatory so you can be like, right? But we don't need that every single day or for 8 hours straight when nothing's happening. And so that all that adrenaline causes inflammation and it degrades the eggs, the ovaries, the lining. If you're a man, your sperm. It's really problematic. It disrupts ovulation. And then to compensate, we produce a lot of cortisol. And the problem with that is that cortisol is progesterone is made from the exact same stuff cortisol is made from. So if you're stressed every single day, what you'll see is that then also high cortisol. And when we see high cortisol, we'll see low progesterone. And without progesterone, we're not staying or getting pregnant. So, we have to always go back to why is that? Why is that? Why is that? Why is that? This is what I've been doing, working on for 20 years, trying to figure out what are the paths to help people easily and quickly figure out what are those underlying whys and what are the simple things you can do yourself. I always say, like, when I had my clinics, when somebody got pregnant, I was kind of the hero. Like, oh, Kirsten got me pregnant. Like, they came, I gave them a treatment and they got pregnant. And I don't like that, right? I want the women using our products and things like that to be the hero of their own story, so that they have a personal transformation, that they're like, I figured it out. I figured it out by myself. We spent like $100 total. And now I know how my body works. And I know when I get tired what to look for. And I know when I have gas and bloating, how to fix that. And I know if I'm watching if my temperature, if my cycle gets irregular, how to fix that. And that's what makes me really happy.
I love that. I love that. And so with this company that so you're no longer, you've done over 20 years, you've been, practice, you had your clinical, you were like one of the first acupuncturists who like really dug into the stuff, right?
Like for fertility, reproductive
Fertility, yes.
acupuncture is what they call it. Yeah.
Yeah. So how did it come to developing this, being the founder of this company that you now have? How did all that go through?
So when I read that study that I talked to you before about, I was just so upset. I just was really upset about it. I don't know why. It just really got on me. And so I started thinking about like, what could I do for them? What could I like? I don't know how to make acupuncture cheaper. Like even if it's very cheap, it's still, if it's not free, it's not worth doing. I mean, it's not cheap enough. Like either you have people who can kind of afford $100 a month or $100 a week. You really can't get it that much cheaper than that. And and so I was just thinking like, what would make a difference, and trying all these things, and then built the first version of the Conceivable app. And as somebody, I was like kind of famous, had kind of a big ego at that time, and I was like, look, if this app is even 50% as good as me, if the outcome. So we did a pilot. We had 105 women using the app and 105 women just going to acupuncture and at our clinic with me. So it was the same acupuncturist, and the app is me, right? It's the AI version of me. So it was like me versus AI me. And at the end of the pilot, 4 months, the people who use the app had no human interaction. And my team came back and they're like, you're not going to believe what happened. I'm like, it didn't work. And they're like, oh, it worked. And I was like, what were the success rates? And they're like, well, they increased their likelihood of getting pregnant by between 150 and 260% in 4 months. And the app outperformed you by 6%. I was like, I just had such a huge piece of humble pie. I was like, oh my God. And that's even the crappy version of the app. I can't believe it. Like, how did that happen? And it's not because acupuncture is not useful or there's not a place for it. I think it goes back to what I was saying before. When people go to acupuncture for fertility, they receive a treatment. And I think they don't take as much ownership. Like they're like, well, I'm paying $100. Like the girl should do, or the guy should do something, and then I just leave and go back to life. And the acupuncturist, depending on how they operate, would be saying like, eat more iron-rich foods and make sure to cut back on sugar. And you're like, yeah, 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 yeah. No, no, no. I built an app that tells you exactly what to do, and then track it. And then if you don't do it, I figure out why you didn't do it and help you to do it, or give you something else to do. So they kind of can't get out from under my wing. It's like if they're really participating, it's not possible. It's not possible to not improve your period, your cycle regularity. You will lose weight because it's just not possible to not do. I'm telling you what to eat, and I'm telling you how to exercise, and I'm helping you manage stress. But weight loss is never a priority for us, because I think just like having low temperatures or being fatigued, and we have to figure out what are the underlying reasons for that. When people have excess weight on their body, it's the same thing. Why do they have excess weight on the body? They're usually really tired. Their digestion is not good. They have a lot of gas and bloating and fatigue, sugar cravings. That what they're eating could be healthy, but it could be totally wrong for them. Like, I don't like a cookie cutter style diet. Like, it's really your body will tell you how much it likes what you're doing and what you're not doing over time, not over 1 or 2 months. People say like, "Oh, I did the whole 30 and I felt great." And I was like, "Yeah, because you didn't eat a drop um of junk food for a whole month." Everyone is going to feel better if you don't eat a drop of junk food. So I can't remember where we were going with this. How did I get there? So after I built the app, I mean, the first version of the app, I was like, well, I think we should do this. And in order to do that, I had to stop seeing patients. And in Texas, if you're not seeing at least 20 hours a week of patients, you have to give up your license. So that was really scary for me. Like, that's been my life, like I'm an acupuncturist, but not anymore. And so I gave up my license and decided to work full time on this because I felt like it was worth it. I feel like mothers are the future of my and your species.
Mhm.
They are the determining factor for the future of the species. They should be held in the highest esteem. We should treat them with such reverence. We should care for them in ways that women have ever been cared for, because the healthier and more, instead we just end up doing everything, right? And this is why we see fertility rates declining, declining, declining. So yeah, and that's what I've been doing. And go ahead.
Oh no, I think it's so super exciting. So with this app, is it, is it particular justly for people who are trying to get pregnant, or but you also said it's just people who, or could it, because you also mentioned like regulating your periods and things like that. So if there was somebody who was just suffering, they really didn't want to have children, but they had these horrible periods because the more that I research it, maybe sometimes surgery, like I said, I went through postmenopausal, and I don't know if I did it during the recording or before we started talking. I went through postmenopausal. Um, I went through menopause because of surgery, right?
Surgical menopause.
Surgical menopause, that's what it's called. And so I went through that, and but prior to that, like it was like, oh, you have bad cycles. Just let's put you on a pill, birth control pill, on which I told you earlier, my tubes are tight, and so it wasn't something that wasn't helpful. I'm just putting more medicine into me. That probably not the best thing, but it didn't really help. It made me actually worse. But is that something that somebody could do, or is it just mainly targeted for people who are trying to get who are dealing with infertility issues?
So depending on when you listen to this episode, currently, as of today, it is mostly like the language and the conversation is around fertility. The good news is that in order to improve fertility, you have to improve everything. So if there's a listener out there who has really bad periods or really irregular periods or is really tired or just doesn't feel well in general, they're like, something's wrong with me. I don't know what it is. Um, like ultimately we will have like like I don't want to call them individual apps because it'll all be under the conceivable sort of umbrella, but you'll be able to like work on PCOS or endometriosis or general period stuff. We're building an app for girls before they have their first period so that we can help them to because on my other TikTok, I have hundreds of thousands of little girl followers who are asking questions about like, where do you put a tampon? Like they don't know anything. They don't know anything. And so in Chinese medicine, they always say the good doctor treats the patient, the great doctor treats society, but the master can make herself obsolete. And that has always been a guiding principle because I was like, I want to work every single time to make myself obsolete, right? To leave the world in a better place without me. And I feel like, okay, I did it one time with acupuncture in my clinic, right, within my app. But now with a little girl app, someday I want to make conceivable obsolete, right? Or we don't have infertility. If we actually really train the young women, all the things that we do currently in the conceivable app, they won't need us anymore. And that will be a day to celebrate.
I love that. I love that. And I even think like the part where you're telling them, like you're in this app, you're telling them what to eat, based on, all of the things. And so, and I think it's like, I love that you're adding onto it because like, it's like a software, like you can choose, like when you have Microsoft software, for example, you can choose, do I want PowerPoint, Word, or all these things? Like, for example, like you can pick the level or the tier that you want is what you foresee this coming through.
Right. Well, and like my goal is that a little girl who's 8 years old starts using the little girl app, and I found for the young girls, the most common two questions, this is during the pandemic that I was really working with the young girls, had more time. The two most popular questions that they asked me were, when is my first period going to come? And how can I make it come faster? Which surprised me because when I was growing up, people did not want to get their periods. But I don't know, this is a hypothesis, but I think it's because it's status, it means you're growing up, it means you're a woman. And so I decided I would just like play a little game because I was like, well, how can I help them to be healthier? Right. So I was like, well, your period is actually a reflection of your overall health and how you live and how you take care of your body. Your job, because you are the future of the species, is to really, whether you choose to or not, you don't have to do anything. Like not everybody wants to have a child, but like it is your opportunity if you want to take it. And so we want to really take really good care of our bodies. So what you eat, how you sleep, how you stress, how you move, how much water you drink, all of those things are the things that determine how healthy your body is, which determines how when your period helps your period to come or not come. And then when it does come, it makes you have an easier time. So, and that app will be like training them to start tracking those things and paying attention to those things so that they start understanding the interrelationship between their period and their health and how they feel and how they think and all those things.
So amazing. So amazing. Another thing that I just love that all the things that you've done, like you had, my whole thing is about just refine and shine, right? And
Yeah,
here, you had something, you had an illness, or disease, your MS, and
yeah.
how you went to acupuncture, then became an acupuncturist, like all of these things that have happened in your life. Did you ever think that you would be doing what you're doing now, like building these apps and this technology?
No, because I can barely work a phone.
Really?
My children joke with me and they're like, Mama, how did you build this? You can't even work your phone. And I was like, well, first of all, I have people. And, I wrote all the algorithms, like the high level algorithms, meaning if this, exactly what the app is supposed to do, what the app is supposed to stay, it's all trained on thousands of hours of consultations with me. But, no, I never would have guessed. But my father always said, he's not alive anymore. He always said, it's really important that you love your work because you spend a lot more time at work than you do with your family. And if you're going to make that sacrifice, make it mean something. And that was a really good quote. And so anytime I would feel like restless or itchy, I was like, and I'm kind of an inventor anyways. I have two patents. Um, and so, I'd always like, and because I want to do better, so I think that each of the steps were like, how can I do something? How can I'm really into service. So how can I serve more powerfully? How can I make a bigger impact? How can I help people better? And so, that's always been a guiding principle. But I think that's a good question. Like, you know, it was funny because my father was an entrepreneur and he really wanted me to be an entrepreneur. But, first I got a degree in English and French. My dad was like, marketable skill. We need a marketable skill here. That's a dumb degree. And of course I couldn't get a job. But then I ended up going to graduate school for linguistics and then when I told him I'm going to go to acupuncture college, he was actually had lung cancer at the time and he was like, what kind of voodoo shit is that? He's like, sorry,
Oh, no,
language.
you're fine.
And I was like, no, it's like, it's look at how much healthier I am. And you know what I mean? He's like, no, no, and then he passed away before he was able to realize like kind of so what I really wish is that my dad was here to sort of celebrate what's happening. Cause I think he would be really excited and proud about it.
Yeah. And it's that entrepreneur, you became an entrepreneur anyway.
Yeah, I did. He wanted me to start, Angelina, he wanted when I was like 20, right out of college, he wanted me to start those wooden pallets that they ship stuff on.
Yeah.
So his company had built a tool that like repaired them,
Mhm.
you know, because he's like, people waste them a lot. They just throw 'em away, but there's a lot of good wood and we should repair. So they developed this tool. And he's like, look, I can get you one of these tools really cheap. And he goes, you should start like a pallet repair company. We could get you like a truck and you would go around to the grocery stores and pick up the old pallets that people were throwing away. And I was like, what? There isn't a chance in the universe that I'm gonna have that job.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was his idea of being an entrepreneur for me. And I was like, no, bro, that's not happening.
I love that though. I love that. But it's the still thing you because of the him wanting to be wanting you to be an entrepreneur. Like maybe it didn't happen in his timeline, but God gave you another purpose, and you're still doing the entrepreneurial thing, but you're just doing it differently. And I love that the passion that you have behind this, and the
Mm,
fact that you also said like I think that people get so scared out of fear, like that they're like, who, like you said, you can't even use your phone, right? And, but how can you come up with this app? You don't have to know all the kinks, but you're writing the words. It's you who they're talking to. And you said over thousands of studies and thousands of things, people you've seen. I mean, that help over 10,000 people with infertility issues to have a baby, to not only just have, to be able to get pregnant, um, and not just get pregnant, because that's one thing, but just to carry the baby to full term
stay
and
pregnant.
deliver. Yeah, stay pregnant is huge. And so I think that when we get scared of, and I just want to say that I appreciate you because a lot of times people get
Mm,
so scared to even think, yes, I have this ideal, but I don't know how to do it. You didn't maybe know how to do the technology part, but you found people to do it. And I think that that's amazing. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. That's such a nice compliment. And I think for all the listeners, I think it's just a good reminder. Like so many people have ideas in their head and they're just like, yeah, I have this idea for this or whatever. And the truth is that especially now, like you can use tools like Cursor or Enonate and you literally can type in what you want to build. I mean, we of course didn't build the Conceivable app like this. It's a little bit more too sophisticated for that. But for a basic app, you can build very basic apps with no coding experience. You literally tell it like, I want to build a dating app that, connects me to people who love flowers or whatever. And it'll just be like, start telling you, do you want it to have this? Do you want it to have that? Do you want to have this? And so trust that if you're really passionate about it, try and find your way. You might surprise yourself and have a lot of fun while you're doing it.
Mhm. I also love what you said about the work. Like you spend so much time working and so
Hmm.
and away from your family. You gotta love what you do. And you have to have passion behind that. And if you don't have that passion, you're just wasting your time. And our time is so precious. I'm a time management. I do coach on time management. I do a lot of different things, but one of the things is you can't get that time back. And so if we're going to be spending this time with our with that at our job, love what we're doing, living a legacy, for sure. And like I just think about those those 10,000 over 10,000 women you've helped. You didn't just help those. You've helped over 10,000 families, and just to think about everything that those children are going to have children and for children, like that's like you've helped over, like by the time think about it, it's like over 1 million people, really
Yeah, I
the
hope so.
with the impact that it helps. I mean, which just statistically speaking, that's what comes to mind, like that 10x theory. Um,
Hmm.
so that's pretty exciting. And so to get the app, can you just download it in your app store, or how do you get this?
You can just get it. Go to we're just waiting on approval from the Android store. We had some extra hoops to jump through from they're taking a little bit longer. So you can download if you have an Android app, if you go to our web app and just it's really ugly. But you can use it if you're just like ready to do it, ai.conceivable.com. And you can sign up, get started. The first month is free. So I encourage everybody, it's very cool. Check it out. And if you have period problems or whatever, what you'll find is that you just have to work your plan, follow your menus, take your supplements. Like one of the things that I'm really proud about, and I'll go back to your answer, is that a lot of women, who are like just in general taking a lot of supplements, but unfortunately they're taking really low quality supplements from Amazon. There are some premium brands on Amazon, but not very many. And those really low quality supplements don't do anything. They don't do anything. Like a $30 bottle of something is typically not going to do anything. In fact, it could work against you, especially if it's a fish oil or something. So what I had originally done was I had sourced like the best supplements, vitamin E, L-arginine, the individual supplements that we use to improve fertility outcomes for specific, like I always say, there's no supplements for fertility because your fertility versus another person's fertility, fertility isn't a disease like diabetes where we just give you insulin and that fixes the situation. It's a multifactorial problem that's mostly related to how we live. Sorry, my AirPod keeps falling out. And but when we would recommend like 6 or 7 or 8 supplements, it would cost like $500. And I felt really at odds with myself because I'm on a mission to make all of it affordable. And then the supplements are so expensive, I was like, how do we fix this? But I didn't want them to not take them and I didn't want them to take cheap ones, and we didn't take a lot of margin, but it was still just too expensive. And we ended up finding this year by just like a blessing, a total blessing, a new manufacturer who has much bigger reach. So we were able to source everything a lot cheaper. And then this particular manufacturer agreed to, so that if the app says, well, okay, here's 5, 6, 7, 8 supplements that will be really beneficial to your presentation, not fertility supplements, but these are things that we need to supplement to kind of get everything we talked about working. It'll put it into individual packs for you for each day of the week. So you just get 30 packs a month, and each pack, rip it open, put it in your mouth, $50 to $60 a month.
Oh wow.
So that's at least 50% lower than anything you can buy on Amazon for the low quality ones, and probably 70% less than a premium product like Thorn or Metagenics, which I would say ours are like equivalent in quality to Thorn. So I just feel really excited because I felt really upset about that. But good supplementation can in the right supplements, high quality, safe, well tested, and at the right dose and at the right time can make a huge difference. But if people can't afford it, then we can't offer it. So I feel happy. So anyways, the other way you can find the app is go to the Apple Store and look up Conceivable. I think it says Kai by Conceivable. We keep changing a little bit. The app is AI, right? And it's really an AI version of me. So Kai is Kirsten AI, Kai. It's kind of cheesy, but it was Kirsten. We just called it Kirsten before, but people could not spell my name. So I was like, all right, we'll shorten it to Kai. And then my daughter's like, I hate that name, but I was like, too bad, so sad.
I love that. How long did it take before you, we'll wrap up in a little bit, but I'm just so fascinated by this whole thing.
Yeah, fine.
How long did it, like from the thought, but when you thought of the app to how, when you launched, when you went to your first beta, how long did that period of time take you?
That's a great question. So I think I probably had the first started thinking about it in probably 2013 or 14, and the first version was available in 2016. And then what happened is we failed. We built out the app, and at that time the app was very clinical. And basically like our advisors and stuff, it said like you should take Kirsten out of it because you can't really sell a company, that if the founder is like all over the place and everything. And they're like, let's take Kirsten all the way out of it and just like make it a clinical experience. And we did customize Chinese herbal medicine for the patients. And we price tested and everything, and we could not earn the trust of the customers. It was just too early, it's like 2015 or 16. Women were like, well, if this is so good, why doesn't my doctor know about it? And, just whatever. And so I paused until the pandemic. And then some investor friends of mine, like, you should try again. And I started rebuilding it from scratch, like not with developers, like with a quiz. And I was handwriting reports. And then I was having them fill out a quiz. I was handwriting a report. Then I was recording a video just to say like, hey, here's the thing. And then people were really interested in that. And then, blah, so on and so on. And then finally it was like, it was too many and it was too much work. And the reports were like 20 pages. And I was like, okay, I can't do this all day. Like it takes too much time to do each report. I need to build technology now. And then, so that started about 3 years ago, the second version of it.
I love that you shared all that because it shows like, and it's all about like, we have something, but I think I love the fact that you failed, but you didn't really fail. You just had to make some tweaks. And I think that some people, like, again, going back to like, just try it. Just if you have a thought and you have something that you want to build, like, just do it. And you not only you did it and then you failed, which you think you failed, but it just didn't work. And then they wanted you because they wanted you taken out of it. But people want that human person no matter what. And I think that once you got that back in, and I think it was very clever to start it right after the pandemic because we lost that human connection. And so you bringing that back in brought that human connection back. So I think that was pretty amazing.
And I have to like thank TikTok for it because it was on TikTok that, I would just, it just blew up. Like somebody recommended like, hey, you should get on TikTok and make videos. Like you're talking about women's health and fertility in a very different way. I think people will be interested. And I was like, I'm 50, like what am I going to dance about periods and ovaries? And I just didn't even know what I would do. And they're like, shut up, like get on there and just teach. You're a great teacher. Just teach about ovary, just whatever, and like people really respond to that. And I started doing a live show every day. And then, usually like 1,000 people a day on the live show. And I met all kinds of women who never different types of women who never came to my clinic, right? Because it was expensive to come to the clinic. So I had like one type of woman who came to my clinic. And here I got to meet like women from all over the world and hear all of their fertility stories. And I just got so inspired by them. I was like, I got to go back to work on this.
I love that. I love that. I love that you didn't give up.
Thank you.
So thank you for that. And I just like you're so fascinating. I mean, you had this, a diagnosis at 19 that could have just stopped you. But you didn't let that, hurt stop you. You went and changed everything around so that you could build what you have today. And it's not always been easy. I'm sure the challenges and tribulations and all of these things, but you went and became, you're a founder of this company. You've helped over 10,000 people. And I just thank you for that because you didn't give up.
Oh, thank you. Well, that, your question about the rise and shine, it really comes to that. Like, I know you're going to ask me, but I'm going to tell you right now because it's a good segue to it. And I'll tell you another one at that time too when you're ready.
Yeah.
But it's mostly like somebody told me one time, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And it's hard to wrap your head around, you know, but if you really pay attention, if when really hard things are happening to you or happening, you know, first of all, if you can keep just reminding yourself, I'm like, it's so hard, you know, you're like, things don't happen to me, they happen for me. Things don't happen to me, they happen for me. It starts to transform something, you know. And then what starts to happen is you start, if you're smart, you start to look at for where's the grace, right? Is there, can I find a little bit of grace in this, a little bit more? And you start changing your mindset from I'm a victim to maybe there's a blessing inside of this. And when I think about my MS, I always tell people like it's the best thing that ever happened in my whole life. Now it hasn't been the most pleasant. It's hard. It creates a lot of like struggles for me sometimes, but it is the best thing because it turned me into the doctor who I am today. I understand being very sick. I understand being helpless. I understand people saying, go to all these people, go, and you're like, I don't know, this is going to work or not, you know? And so it helped me really cultivate tremendous empathy for the women that I serve. And so for that, I can have gratitude for it. You know, again, just because you hate it and you don't want it, it doesn't mean that you can't have gratitude for it. And if you can find gratitude for those hard things, you can set yourself free.
I love that. I love that. Yes. And so as we wrap up, I mean, that was perfect. That was so beautiful. But, what is the next thing that you have from our listeners today that they can help them to refine and shine?
So I think that, you know, this is different than everything that we've talked about, but one thing I've learned this year about it is my schedule has slowed down. Even though like my company is starting to really take off, I have more people on my team for the first time. Like before I was kind of doing everything myself. And in order to rise and shine, we have to have enough time around us. You're a time management specialist, right? And so I talk to women all day long who are like, I'm like, tell me about your day. And they're like, well, I get up at 4:30 and then I go to the gym and then I come and make breakfast for my husband and then I do this and then I go to work and then I go to another thing and then 9 o'clock I get in bed and I go to sleep. And it's like, so do you do anything for fun? Is there a hobby in there? Is there anything just for you? And I think that, young women today are under a lot of pressure to be everything. And because of that, they're filling up their schedules 4 a.m. to 10, and it's really hurting them. It's hurting their heart, like their emotional heart. It's hurting their productivity. I always want to see what happens when we set women free. Like we help them to be as healthy as they can. What happens in society when women aren't burdened with their periods, right? When they don't have PMS, when they don't have cramping anymore. And so to answer your question, my answer would be to really look at your calendar for the next week and try to see, is there anything that's a little bit not as important? You know, what can I cut back and where can I start carving out even 15 minutes of time every single day just for yourself, not with your phone? Time for yourself is not looking at TikTok. I love looking at TikTok. That's not time for yourself. It's something that feeds you. Because the more that we do of that, the more we can transform and heal ourselves without an app like Conceivable or anything.
No, I think that that's so important. I love that because that's one of the things I tell people. When you're scheduling your time, the first thing that you do, and it's not being selfish, you schedule time for you. You first schedule time for you. When are you gonna, yeah, exercise is important, but when is the time that you're just gonna rest? Maybe read a book, something that you find joy in, listening to your worship music or whatever it is that fills your cup. These are things that don't have to even cost you anything. Because then if you're not, you're giving yourself the leftovers, right? If you're doing everything else for
Mm.
everybody else,
Oh,
your
I
whole
love
work
that.
is full, your day is full, like you said, from 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. You're full of work, family, all of these things. You're giving yourself the leftovers and you're teaching your children, you're teaching
Mm.
everybody else that you don't matter to yourself because you're putting yourself last.
I love that. You made me cry a little bit because it's so true. It's so true that that is the other piece for women. I mean, I'm not a man, so I can't really speak on the men's side. I'm not excluding them, but I only know my own,
Mhm.
gender. Um, we have to be so careful because however we're acting, we are training our daughters and sons, but especially our daughters. We're teaching our sons that women are worthless, right? That women are just the workers in the house. And we're teaching our daughters, you should be a worker instead of you should be a queen, right? Oh, can
Yes.
I tell you one more story?
Oh, yes, you go ahead.
Okay, because I just remember this that I haven't thought about in forever. I had a lady who helped me clean my house for a long time, and she was from Mexico, and she was just the smartest, sweetest person I'd ever met, just the loveliest person. And and one day we were talking about first periods, and she told me that her son had just gone off to junior high, and she said, "Oh yeah, I had a big talk with my son about periods," and I was like, okay. Let me hear it. Like, what did you say? And she goes, well, she said, I said, you're going to junior high now. And first of all, I want you to know that girls are going to be very different in junior high than in elementary school. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, their bodies are going to be changing. And they're going to be changing their booties are going to get a little bigger and their boobies are going to get bigger, is what her words.
Mhm.
And she said, and you're going to be interested in that. And she says, first of all, you can be interested, but you must be respectful. So you're not going to stare at anybody or comment ever on a girl's body or anything. She would maybe take a quick peek and you're like, wow, like pretty body, you know? And she said, and that's it. And I loved that she took the time to have it. But she's like, and then she goes, the other thing is like, as girls, our bodies are changing because their bodies are preparing to be able to have babies. And that is really important. And that's God's work. And it isn't shameful and it's not embarrassing. It's beautiful. And once a month they're gonna, and she explained their periods and like blood's gonna come out and everything. And he was like, ooh, gross, disgusting. She goes, no, it's beautiful. She goes, just like I clean houses, God made women's uterus to clean it every single month. So it's perfect for the next month. And, how much God decided all that, I don't know, who cares? But and she said, and she goes, no, it's really beautiful. And she goes, so you might be at school and a girl might be walking in front of you and you might see like on her booty like a little bit of blood because maybe her tampon or pad leaked. And most boys will be like, you got, whatever. She said, no, what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your jacket off and you're gonna give it to her and wrap it around her waist and say, you got something on your pants, you can borrow my jacket till tomorrow.
Oh, that gave
And
me
I was
chills.
like, me too. And I was like, you're the best mother that ever lived in this universe. If every mom had that conversation with their son, we would have a different society. So thank you for I haven't thought about that story in a long, 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 long time, but um it's really beautiful.
I love how she phrased it like, like how she cleans houses for, like how God cleans out the body. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I never even
Yeah,
thought of
right?
it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, so beautiful and so age appropriate.
Mhm. Yeah.
I thought that she just nailed like telling him exactly enough what he needed to hear so that it would impact him and, turn him into a good, respectful young man, but, not overwhelm him like I probably would have done.
Yeah. It's the way that we think. I think sometimes for us, we overcomplicate sometimes when we're inventing things or thinking of things or analyzing things sometimes. But I love how she put that. That was so beautiful. Thank you for all the things that you've shared. And for people who want to follow you, I'll make sure that they have the links. But what is the best way? What do you use the most? TikTok to follow you?
I use TikTok the most. We know that TikTok is going away.
Okay.
So there will be a new TikTok on September 5th called M2. So if you get on TikTok there, you can follow here. We don't even know if like our followers report over. So the best way to currently get in touch with me is probably just from our website, conceivable.com. And check it out. They can try the app, they can try the supplements, we have a wearable that's pretty amazing too. We'll talk about that another time.
Oh, yes, I can't wait to talk about that again as well. There's so much we can talk about. And so I just wanted thank you so much for all the info you provided. I'm gonna actually look, I mean, I don't have my cycles anymore, but I'm still interested in it because of all the different things, like how it helps with your energy levels and all these things. So thank you so much. I think you provided a tremendous service for my listeners today.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. And I've loved our conversation. And literally, if there's anything that I can do to support you or anyone, please reach out to me. Like, I'm really, a diehard service person. So, where people need help, I want to be there.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much.
Okay, doll. Thank you again.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fuel your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.